I have a story for you. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm a big fan of yours and have been, and I just think you're very brave in your commentary. And I think if you were saying things that were more supportive of BLM and less supportive, not that you've been a cop supporter, but you've been just calling out disinformation about them, you'd be all over television. You know, you're smart, you're fearless, you happen to be a person of color, and somebody like you would be all over MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, whatever. But you won't get any invitations from ABC or NBC or MSNBC or CNN because you're not saying the things that they like. And this drives me nuts. It drives me nuts whether it's Thomas Sowell, Jason Whitlock, you, Glenn Lowry. I could go on because I see really amazing people who happen to be Black totally silenced by the mainstream media because you don't go along with the narrative being pushed. So if I see a good tweet or whatever, I'll retweet it. And it's both because I tend to agree with this stuff and also because I just try to amplify voices that are being ignored. So believe it or not, there are some students at my home high school, my high school in Bethlehem, New York, Albany, New York, which is the town of Bethlehem Central High School. And they complained about me retweeting you and retweeting Jason Whitlock, and said it was insensitive to me that these tweets added pain and offense to the national conversation. And my school, to its credit, didn't just say, oh, we're afraid, we're going to, and they want to be bounced out of the Bethlehem Central Hall of Fame. Now, it's not that this was a hugely important role in my life, but it was kind of bullshit because it's a free speech matter, right? It's like, it's about so much more than just whether you agree with the tweets that I retweeted. And so to my school's credit, they reached out to me and said, do you care to defend yourself? And I responded and said, look, I will respond to your questions out of respect for my Bethlehem school community, which I love. And I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I wrote in part, the fact that I'm asked to explain anything that I post or discuss on my podcast is a reflection of the dangerous times in which we're living. Free speech is under assault. Divergent viewpoints are being disallowed. There's only one way to look at or discuss subjects like race, gender, sexual identity, sexism, and more without becoming the target of the woke outrage mob, which derives its power by canceling people for the thought crime of disagreeing with them. And I wrote, my position in the Bethlehem Hall of Fame was delightful to receive, but I wish to be clear, nothing will stop me from enthusiastically engaging in the ongoing free and open exchange of ideas. Not folks claiming offense, not the threat of an honor being revoked, not anything. Here's paragraph 2. For what it's worth, the 2 tweets you raise, for which I make no apology, are in fact retweets of comments by prominent Black broadcasters. One, Leonydus Johnson, has a podcast called Informed Dissent. The other, Jason Whitlock, is a former ESPN journalist who is currently with Outkick Sports. Both have a heterodox view of the Black Lives Matter movement and for that have been attacked with racist terms like Uncle Tom by those who disparage Black Americans as sellouts if they do not toe a certain political line. I say, I believe this shaming of alternative viewpoints is deeply wrong, and on I go, and wound up saying this at the end. The bottom line is that this country, by its very design, was meant to celebrate and encourage divergent viewpoints, not punish them. That remains my mission, one I pledge to continue in the many public venues in which I appear, reporting all news without fear or favor, a principle I first learned at Bethlehem Central. And I heard back from the school, Leonydus, and guess what? They sided with me.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
I know, me too.
Yeah. I appreciate you retweeting me, first of all, and then including me with all those great minds. My gosh, that was a compliment in and of itself. But you know, it's funny. People accuse me of having internalized white supremacy, and I'm sure Jason Whitlock and Glenn Lowry they get the same kind of thing. Yeah. And so what happens is if white people retweet me, if I have a view that goes against the accepted narrative, and somebody like you retweets me, then all of a sudden, since I have internalized white supremacy, that means that you're supporting white supremacy. So in this twisted view, even though you're retweeting a Black guy, you're actually supporting white supremacy, because that makes sense in this upside down world that we live in.
That's how they silence you. They silence you at every turn. You don't get an invitation to appear. And then when somebody like me who has a large platform tries to amplify your voice, we get shamed, because they don't like you being amplified in any larger form than the one you happen to have.
Right. Exactly. And like I said, they don't, like I said earlier in the show, they don't believe what they say. They only use what they think they can use in the moment to exert control over you. So it's what you said in that tweet, or what I said in the tweet, and what you retweeted. It was probably not an issue, that what they just disagreed with it and then wanted to silence you for it.
And let me read your tweet. Okay, this is how controversial it was. I'm so sick of talking about race. I'd be ecstatic to never talk about race ever again. This religious, cultish obsession with racial issues and racial identity and victimhood inevitably drives racial hatred and hostility. It is quite literally making the world worse. That's it. That's it. You're not allowed to have that viewpoint as a black man in America, and I'm not allowed to think it's worthy of amplification.
Yeah, it's incredible that that's even a controversial viewpoint.
Right?
Like, hey guys, let's stop talking about race. Let's get past this idea that race has a massive impact on our identity, and let's start treating each other by, like Dr. King wanted us to, by the content of our character. It's like, oh, that's a white supremacist viewpoint. It's like, what are you talking about? It's unbelievable that that's even controversial. But yeah, I mean, this is where we are. Like when you have these kind of ideas and you have this obsession with racial identity, it only ends up driving enmity. And I really am, like I said in that tweet, I really am tired of talking about it, but we have to, we can't stop talking about it, because the other side is talking about it all the time. And that's all they care about. So I've actually had people accuse me of being obsessed with race myself. And I'm like, listen, like, I'm not obsessed with racial identity. I'm only trying to push back on what the other side is saying. I'm trying to offer a counter viewpoint here, because they won't shut up about it. Everything they say has some racial element to it. And yeah, it is making our world worse. It's making everything worse. It's toxic and it's divisive, and yeah, we need to get past it. And I can't, like I said, I can't believe it's controversial.
Whenever I tweet something that, pushes back on any female's narrative, any woman's narrative, whatever it is, I tell somebody to toughen up, what have you, then I get accused of internalized misogyny. That's my So This is what they do to anybody sort of who's not woke or pushes back against these narratives. And you do have to be okay with these names. I'm sure you have been called an Uncle Tom and all the other names. And it's not pleasant, but to other people like you who would like to speak out but don't want to be called the names, what's your message?
You have to have tough skin. You have to, if you want to speak out, you have to know that they're going to come for you, and you have to be okay with that. If you can't handle being called the names, you can't handle the personal attacks, then it's not going to go well, because they're going to come for you. Anytime you disagree with the narrative, like you said, whether it doesn't matter if it's race or gender or what it may be, as soon as you disagree with it, they're going to bring out the gloves, and they're going to attack you for it. So you just have, you have to find some tough skin, and you have to know that their opinion doesn't matter. Like if you know the truth, speak the truth.
Skin matters, but it's not the color, it's the thickness.